Massini, Gresini, Ducati boss, also part of their little pre-sprint huddle.
Yeah, it feels the pendulum has swung back towards Ducati here this weekend, doesn't it? After a real show of Aprilia strength at Assen, locked out the top 4 on the grid, locked out the Sunday podium. Is it now the opportunity for the Bologna Bullets to wrestle the momentum in the World Championship, and potentially for Fabio Di Giannantonio, if he can pull out a couple of big results, to maybe, just maybe, lead the MotoGP World Championship into the summer break? I was going to say stranger things have happened. Plenty of strange things have happened in this incredible 2026 season so far.
Marc Marquez's all-time lap record lap this morning in Q2. Ducati's at 6 consecutive pole position here in Germany. They are undefeated in 3 previous sprints here. Twice the victor. He's unbeaten himself in a sprint here in Germany. Is Jorge Martin going to have to go some to continue that stellar record? Now on the factory Aprilia, of course. Jorge now bumped up to 8th place, middle of the 3rd round. Maverick Vinales, what's going through the mind right now of the Top Gun, who at the moment is at the bottom of the order in MotoGP. Maverick Vinales having a nightmare spell, qualifying down, well, he's starting 19th, qualified 20th. As we're going to get now a little bit of an explanation on what is, for the first time in history, a revised grid format. More space then now between every single row on the grid. This is the perfect illustration to explain the former format. 9 metres previous between rows, 3 metres between positions on the same row. That has been extended now up from 9 metres to 12 metres is the new gap between all rows on the grid. Of course, last time out in Assen we saw a blanket ban on whole shot devices, no launch devices now permitted in MotoGP. This is a further reaction to a couple of our serious first lap incidents we've seen most recently in Balaton Park and in Catalonia. Yeah,
we're going to get our first, I guess, opportunity in practice to see what difference that will make to the start of the sprint coming up, whether it will be harder for some of those faster starters further back to make progress up the order. And it potentially is an even bigger opportunity or an even bigger benefit to be on pole position, as Marc Marquez is. Pole position number 77 of his MotoGP career and counting for the reigning world champion. And of course, he will not want to see any rider get injured, just like none of us do watching up here. But there is no room for sentiment at this level, and Marc Marquez must know, with Bezzecchi now sidelined for the rest of the weekend, he has got to take full advantage.
Well, it was dreamland last time out in Assen, wasn't it, for Superfile Trackhouse Aprilia? Just a second team in Grand Prix history to take a clean sweep. 1-2 in the sprint, 1-2 in the Grand Prix. Only Ducati done that previously, the factory team in Motegi last year. Can they have another double podium here this afternoon? Let's get the thoughts of the boss, Davide Brivio, with Jack.
Yeah, that's the big question. Back-to-back 1-2 finishes, Davide. Can you go and do it again? Can we have a hat-trick?
Oh, that's, I mean, what we have done in Assen is something exceptional, I think difficult, and here, of course, but that's the past. I mean, we are approaching this weekend like a normal weekend, of course, and try to do our best. Probably here, of course, we know Marc is very strong, Ducati are showing great pace, so we're starting from a good position to be in a second row, try to play our card, and see what we can achieve and try to score points. See what's happened.
Would you say Raul looks slightly stronger than I at this current moment, or is it quite equal?
Yeah, no, he has been very good through all the weekend, especially on a time attack, on a fast lap, but also on a pace. Yeah, it's not so bad. I wouldn't say, I don't know, stronger or not, because also, you know, he gets better and better. So they both quite comfortable on a bike. They are both quite happy about the setup and everything, so let's see what we can do.
Thanks, Davide. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jack. Thanks to Trackhouse boss Davide Brivio. Well, the omen's good for Ralph Hernandez. He started Assen in 4th place and went on to win the sprint in emphatic fashion, and he pushed his teammate Ayagur all the way to the checker flag in that unforgettable Dutch Grand Prix for the American-based team. Marc Marquez produced something special, as he so often does, at the Sachsenring here this morning. So too did Fabio Quartararo in the factory Yamaha. Second row start for the 27-year-old Frenchman. 4 long years since he was last victorious in the Grand Prix here back in 2022. Only the third time this year Quartararo finds himself starting inside the top 6. His first in 6 since his home round at the French Grand Prix in Le Mans. He certainly capitalised on getting through Q1, did Quartararo, because he found half a second to get himself onto that second row of the grid. Can't say the same for Pecco Bagnaia, who was fast, but just nowhere near fast enough. At least Pecco was consistent in the 2 qualifying sessions this morning, because he set a 1:19.753 to top Q1, and he did the exact same lap time in the second qualifying session, which qualified him 11th. He gets bumped up, though, of course, to P10.
Yeah, fortunately, it took a 1:19.0 for pole position from his teammate Marc Marquez, which is why Bagnaia finds himself back on that 4th row. But he has come from as far back as that to finish on sprint podiums already this season. He was 10th on the grid in Jerez, came through to finish the sprint, albeit a rain-affected sprint, in 2nd place, and 13th to a Sunday podium in Barcelona. There's Joan Mir, who is the leading Honda on the grid. We've had a bit of a familiar story, it has to be said, from a Honda point of view this weekend. We've often seen on Fridays the Hondas look good midway through practice, but then as everyone else makes that big step forward on a brand new soft rear tyre, Honda don't make that same step, which is why their first rider, the 2020 champion, starts 12th.
Bagnaia 10th on the grid here today. He was 10th on the grid here last year and fought his way through to 3rd place in the Grand Prix, behind both Marc and Alex Marquez. The only rider so far this season is Pecco Bagnaia, but that still has a 100-point scoring record in all 10 sprints so far this year. There is Jorge Martin then. An opportunity to stretch out that narrow 7-point lead over his absent teammate Marco Bezzecchi in the World Championship, as there is the now traditional pre-sprint and pre-Grand Prix routine, getting himself limbered up and fighting fit for what is about to come. Marc Marquez on that pole position. Jorge Martin, when he was on a Pramac Ducati in the sprints in 2023 and in 2024, while he won the pair of them. First time he's tackling the Sachsenring on an Aprilia, and it has not been an easy proposition for the Spanish rider. I think if Jorge can get out of here with a couple of top 5 finishes, he'll be super happy to take that into his summer break.
Yeah, it feels like the summer break is coming at a good time for the Aprilia factory team, who have committed a bit of self-destruct since that Italian Grand Prix victory when they heralded Mugello as their house. The house has been crumbling, it has to be said, since then for that particular team. Even if from an Aprilia point of view, they have been going very well so far. Let's head down back to the grid and join Jack, who's with Michele Messini.
Yeah, great to be joined by Michele in the middle of the front row of the grid. This is fabulous to see, a real return to form now that he's fully fit for Alex.
Yeah, a full return, as you said. I mean, our target was to make a normal GP weekend, but normal with this speed is amazing to be here, and hope that we enjoy the first row, because it's crucial here. Also, we have the plus that is 1 meter more in between rows, so I think that the important is to keep the position, and then we'll see. We know that Marc, as Alex said, always something more here, but never say never.
As you say, Alex knows better than anybody on the grid how hard it will be to stop Marc Marquez around the Sachsenring. Can he do it?
Of course, but we have to play our cards at 100%.
Good luck.
You're welcome.
Never say never. Thanks, Jack. Thanks to Michele Messini. It is a very, very tough task, a big ask to try and topple Marc Marquez here at the Sachsenring. Alex Marquez, he had 27 podiums in sprints and Grand Prix in 2025. 19 of those were 2nd place. He'll be looking to put one over on his older brother, Marc, here this afternoon. Alex on the front row of the grid for just the 2nd time in 2026. But from pole position, he has been here before. He has been here, done it, got the T-shirt and several pieces of silverware at the end of a Sachsenring Grand Prix weekend, hasn't he, Marc Marquez? Is he going to make it back-to-back sprint victories here? He left it late to deny Bezzecchi the victory chance here 1 year ago in what was a wet weather sprint. But Marc Marquez in the big, clear favourite from pole position. Pecco Bagnaia with work to do from the head of the 4th row of the grid. Let's get the thoughts of Ducati boss Davide Tardozzi with Jack.
Davide, goes without saying, Marc, red-hot favourite for the sprint today. How much is it down to Marc to keep the concentration here?
Yeah, he's very concentrated, but you know, one fast lap is able to do it because he's a very talented guy, but in the end the race is another story, and not today, but we are more worried for tomorrow, because here the racetrack doesn't give you too much room to relax, you know. Here is a very demanding racetrack, so we'll see.
Feels like that Pecco was able to take a step today, but not enough of a step to get up towards that front row with obviously a Ducati lockout.
Yeah. I don't know. In this moment, we know that we have 3 Ducatis on the first row, but we are absolutely sure that the 2 Trackhouse Aprilias will be very fast, mainly in the end of the race, like they used to do. So having a good start is important, but collecting points is more important too. Good luck. Thank you.
Thanks, Jack. Thanks to Ducati boss Davide Tardozzi. Marc Marquez, pole position in Jerez. He won the sprint. Marc Marquez, pole position in Balaton Park. He won the sprint. Is he going to make it 3 out of 3 so far in 2026? The only times though this season where Marc Marquez has had podiums in both the sprint and the Grand Prix was in Hungary and most recently in Brno. So then, your front row of the grid on this revised grid with no Marco Bezzecchi, sadly absent through injury after his heavy Q2 crash this morning at turn 7. And all Ducati front row for the first time this season. Fabio Di Giannantonio, top Ducati in the World Championship, goes from 3rd place. Alex Marquez on the front row for just the 2nd time this season. But can anybody dethrone the king of the Sachsenring in the short sprint format? Marc Marquez on pole. Six different riders have already collected a gold medal on Sprint Saturdays so far in 2026. The leader of the pack in terms of that gold medal haul is the reigning world champion, Marc Marquez. Winner of the sprint in Goiânia, winner of the sprint in Jerez, winner of the sprint at Balaton Park in Hungary just a few weeks ago. And he's the big favourite to take the spoils and get another gold medal. If he does so here this afternoon, over 15 laps of the Sachsenring, he will be outright the most successful sprint winner in history. He's tied at the top on 18 sprint wins with fellow Spaniard Jorge Martin. No Marco Bezzecchi, the former World Championship leader, winner of our opening 3 Grand Prix of the campaign. Sadly missing in action now for the remainder of this weekend. A heavy high side in 4th gear and the 170 kilometers an hour at turn 7 in qualifying this morning has ruled Bezzecchi out of all the race action here now at the Sachsenring. That leaves an all Ducati front row of the grid, as it was anyway at the end of Q2, led by Marc Marquez, pole number 77 for the reigning world champion. 7 points is the buffer Jorge Martin has over his teammate Marco Bezzecchi. So whatever happens in this sprint, Jorge Martin will still be leading the World Championship going into tomorrow's 30-lap Grand Prix of Germany. Can the likes, though, of Ayagura and Fabio Di Giannantonio pile some pressure on Martin at the top of the standings? Strange to think, isn't it, as we head into the halfway point of the campaign. This round 11 of 22, we have still not seen a Ducati rider lead the World Championship so far this year. Pedro Acosta was the round 1 leader of the standings after Burram, and since then it has been a tale of the factory Aprilias, Martin and Bezzecchi. Giannantonio, 16 points he is behind Martin as we're going to this 15-lap sprint then here in the Grand Prix of Germany. Marc Marquez, big favourite from pole position. He's 9th pole here at the Sachs ring. Brother Alex slots in alongside him on the front row of the grid. They were 1 and 2 in the Grand Prix here last summer. The Gian Antonio then on the front row of the grid for the 10th time in his MotoGP career, still seeking his first ever sprint victory. The Ducati undefeated in sprints here. They've won it in 2023, 2024 and in 2025. Can they complete a fantastic 4th successive win? Green flag then has cleared at the back. Lights out, and we're racing in the sprint here in the Sachs ring. It's a really good start from pole position by Marc Marquez. Aguirre trying to make up some early ground on Fabio Di Gianantonio on that run down to the first corner. Aguirre's got the inside line there on his teammate Ralph Fernandez. Aguirre surely is going to get through on the Gianantonio as well. Aguirre then super aggressive, up 2 places, 5th to 3rd.
Yeah, Digi got squeezed on the outside of turn 1 and had to back out of that. Pecco Bagnaya's made a big start. He's up, I think, already into about 6th or 7th. He's side by side with Frankie Morbidelli. They are both ahead of Jorge Martin.
Just the start that Marc Marquez envisaged, just the start he dreamt of. We're going through turn 7, which is where Marco Bezzecchi had his monster Q2 crash this morning, which has ruled him out of this Grand Prix. So from pole position, Marc Marquez, clear track ahead of him at the Sachs ring. That spells trouble for the chasing pack.
Yeah, and that's Jorge Martin attacking at the inside there of Frankie Morbidelli, former Pramac teammates. I think that's Martin up into 7th place.
So there is Martin then, who was pushed up 1 place on the grid from 9th into 8th. He dropped down through the Ralph Bollman curve, the spectacular 5th gear sweep down the hill into turn 11. 2 left-hand corners remaining now as Aguirre just manages to fend off Fernandez behind him. Martin's had a real strong first lap here. Now he's got through the factory Ducati of Bagnaia.
Yep, so he is now running 6th, so it's Ducati's 1 and 2. Then we've got the first of the Trackhouse Aprilias, of course, now behind Di Gianantonio. He's reclaimed that 3rd place, so Trackhouse 4 and 5. So they have been the places to swap on the first lap. Top 3 as they started now, with Marc Marquez leading by 1/4 of a second.
Perfect first lap for the number 93, wasn't it? Got the drop on the field on that run down to a tricky, tight first corner, avoided any potential drama and chaos behind him. Shows the significance of a front row start here in the Sachs ring. Marc Marquez in the 120s on that from that standing start. Ralph Fernandez was 5th. He was doing 122s further down the field in traffic. You've got the likes of Acosta, Marini, Morbidelli doing 23s. Just shows how tough it is to work your way through the order around this tight, twisty Saxon ring.
Key move on that opening lap, though, for Di Gianantonio to get back ahead of the Trackhouse Aprilias. He's now trying to get himself back onto terms with the Marquez brothers. Of course, Di Gianantonio with an opportunity. If Di Gianantonio can win this sprint, he would take 2nd place in the World Championship away from Marco Bezzecchi. He's got 2 Marquez brothers between himself and that.
In the Saxon ring, sunshine through one of just 3 right-handers here. The jaw-dropping turn 11. We're on board then with Alex as we drop down almost 300 kilometers an hour before you hit the brakes and then attack the 2 final left-handers. Just bringing a little bit offline there. Cutting a late apex was the 73 of Alex Marquez. The 3 Ducatis to start of this sprint on the front row of the grid, just trying to put a little bit of daylight between themselves and the Trackhouse Aprilias behind them. Aguirre running a slightly wide line through that final corner compared to his teammate Ralph Fernandez. Digia, fastest rider on circuit with a 120.119.
Yeah, Pedro Acosta's done a 20.4 further back, but he's exceeded track limits in the process. He is already on lap 2 of the sprint, got a track limits warning, so he's already walking a disciplinary tightrope.
Some strong starts from some of our former world champions in this pack. Jorge Martin, 8th up to 6th. Bagnaia, even better, 10th up to 7th, trying to keep his impressive point-scoring record going in sprints so far this year. Bagnaia scored points in all 10 sprints so far this season, the only rider to do so. As we drop down then now through this 4th gear left-hander turn 7. This is Marc Marquez's domain. This is his territory. Left, left, left. He loves left-handers. His dirt track background really paying dividends here now.
Aguirre, though, is just about keeping tabs on them. The Trackhouse Aprilia next up. He's got Ralph Fernandez still right behind him. The battle between the 2 teammates for 4th and 5th, and Martin, this Aprilia trio, 4th, 5th and 6th. Martin, of course, looking to claim as many points as he can with his teammate not even starting. Yeah, the gap between him and Bears coming into this sprint was 7 points. So a potential big payday coming, a big payday weekend for Martin. Into turn 13 we go then. We're about to click off lap 3 of 15. Over the line it will be Marc Marquez that will lead. He just set his personal best lap of the sprint so far, down to a 120.286. Aguirre is looking strong. Behind Marc, Alex, Digia and Aguirre all doing 20.3s. Yeah, personal best for the 79. He's been able to put a bit of breathing space, only just by about 0.3 of a second between himself and his teammate Ralph Fernandez. This is the battle for 8th and 9th. We were just picking picking it up there. Quartararo versus Acosta, as Pedro Acosta looks to try and get himself ahead of the factory Yamaha into what will be 2 World Championship points for P8.
A tough start from 11th on the grid for Jack Miller. Into Q2 for just the 3rd time this season. Jack's lost early ground on the podium in the Suzuka 8-hour endurance race last weekend. He's down in 15th place at the moment for Prima Pramac Yamaha. Under pressure here is El Diablo. Pedro Acosta trying to find a way through on Quartararo. Tough to make a move there through that left-hander at turn 8. Can he build up some momentum? Maybe attack Quartararo down the hill. A favourite overtaking hotspot coming up for Acosta. Got to get the corner speed now here through 11. That's a tough proposition to get close to Quartararo.
The Marquez brothers look like they were battling each other there in the top of the picture for the lead. Mark is under a bit of pressure in the top left corner as Acosta is piling the pressure on Quartararo. But look at this queue now that's building up behind the 93. Marc Marquez, I don't think he'll be worried at this stage, setting a pace that he is happy to set. But both Alex Marquez, Di Gianantonio and the Trackhouse of Brilliance have jumped all over it.
Acosta got through on Quartararo then at the final corner. Acosta now up into P8. Yeah, there's a big gang forming, isn't there? An express terrain building up behind the 93 of Mark. Fastest rider in that league group on the previous lap was once again Agura in 4th, looking super strong for super far track out, so 120.478. That was almost 0.3 of a second quicker than your sprint leader Mark.
Yeah, Mark said yesterday, he said over 1 lap, I think I'm the fastest, but over race distance, and I guess you'd have to put sprint distance into that category, so he didn't think he was the fastest. Is he potentially proving himself right at the moment? Because he's now dropped downhill. Alex Marquez looks like he's keen to make a move on his older brother.
Yeah, it's one thing to sit on Mark's rear tyre. It's an entirely different ball game to try and find a way through. When will Alex feel like will be the right time to maybe try and strike on Mark? He's been sat on that rear tyre now for almost 5 laps, almost 3rd sprint distance completed. He's so good, isn't he? We know Alex Marquez's strength, his fast right-handers. That's the real kryptonite, isn't it, for Mark? And you can see evidence there as they go through that 5th gear right-hander of turn 11. It's where Alex can really make up some serious ground on brother Mark ahead of him.
Mark stronger through the left that completed the lap 12 and 13. They're now doing 20.7s in the lead pace. They were doing low 20s earlier on as Alex is just favouring a different line down the main straight. He wasn't really trying to distract his brother, although his brother does go slightly wide, but you can take multiple lines through that first corner. It's whether you want the speed going in or whether you want the speed coming.
20.7s on that lap 5, just in danger of getting slightly dropped off this podium battle. This medal hunt is Fernandez in 5th. He came over the line over half a second behind his teammate Agura, so can't get too detached here, can he? The Spaniard, he's got trouble brewing behind him as well with Jorge Martin lurking.
Yeah, Alex Marquez is no fool. He's not going to launch a crazy move from way too far back on his older brother. He knows full well that Marc Marquez is coming back from a pretty significant injury at the start of the season, which is why he's played catch-up in the World Championship. Mark will really want these points, but we've heard from Davide Tardozzi, it's all about collecting points. Whether it's 12, whether it's 9, just collect some points, particularly with Bezzecchi not even in the action.
Still firmly in the game for his first ever sprint victory is the number 49 of the Gianantonio. He's going to be gaining more points, isn't he? Crucial points in the top of the championship. He's only 16 adrift, and Martin coming into this 15-lap sprint. Lap 6 of those 15 is now in the books. Just under a quarter of a second dividing Mark and Alex at the front as we drop anchor with Alex onto this real tricky downhill off-camber first corner.
Frankie Morbidelli's dropped down the order. The reason for that is because he has crashed out. Presumably it's at the final corner because he was certainly in the pack as they dropped down the hill from the waterfall. And of course, he has the 3-place group penalty to come tomorrow, so a big opportunity lost for Frankie Morbidelli.
Let's hope Frank is okay, because he had an almighty crash at turn 8 in that wet sprint here last year, a crash which ultimately ruled him out of the Sunday Grand Prix as well. He's back on his feet, which is good to see, but it's another pretty miserable weekend so far for Frankie. Here we go then, into turn 8. One of the 10 left-handers around this anti-clockwise Saxon ring circuit. Just a little bit of a gap emerging, isn't there, between Mark and Alex. Mark just keeping hovering over a couple of tenths of a second.
Yeah, the Aprilias, or certainly Fernandez and Martin are now struggling to set this race leading pace. They're now back in the 121s, top 3 or top 4 actually. Back to Agura are still lapping in the 120s, and we're now starting to see this leading group splinter a little bit. You can see now the big noticeable gap between the 79 here of Agura to his Trackhouse teammate Ralph Fernandez. Is this Marc Marquez feeling a bit more comfortable, a bit happy now, and upping his pace? Well, he's still doing 120.7s, but it's now just the top 3 that are in the 120s.
Yeah, this pace a little bit too hot right now for Fernandez there in 5th place. He's got, at the moment, Martin and Bagnaia pretty well covered up as Martin runs a little bit wide, drops right across the nose, doesn't he, there at Bagnaia. It set him on a wide route as well, going through turn 2. There's no way through. That just shows how tight and twisty this first sector is in particular. I think in any other circuit, Bagnaia is darting for the inside line there, but did not want to instigate contact, did he, as Martin, who was perfect with his rights, to seize the racing line back as they drop down towards the Omega corner into turn 3.
6th place is worth 4 World Championship points to Jorge Martin. That would put him 11 clear of Marco Bezzecchi. Fabio Di Gianantonio in 3rd at the moment. That would score him 7 World Championship points. So he would close to within 2 of Bezzecchi for 2nd in the World Championship. But Di Gianantonio has not settled for bronze by any means yet.
When Marc Marquez leads at the Sachsenring, he doesn't tend to squander that lead, does he? He tends to get business sorted when he leads here at his beloved German Grand Prix venue. He's doing a great job at the moment of keeping Alex Marquez, his younger brother, 2-3 tenths off of his rear tyre at the moment. Gianantonio has been 3rd for most of this sprint. He's not really been able to get close on tabs, has he, to show either of the Marquez brothers his front wheel as yet. Over the line we go. It's only Mark and Alex that are keeping themselves in those 120, slightly faster once again. On the last lap was Mark. Gap extends to just over 4 tenths.
It's Gianantonio doing a 21.0, so he lost another quarter of a second. It's one below him before Digia is a second off the sprint lead. He's not under any pressure at the moment, though, from Agura, so he's still in a fairly comfortable 3rd place. Agura now best part of a second clear of Ralph Fernandez. And Martin, of course, with that rather scruffy lap, he's now very much got his eyes on what's behind him and defence from Bagnaia rather than attacking up ahead.
This was the start then to this sprint. Brilliant launch away, of course, as we get the wider grid format now with more space between rows on the grid. Thankfully, we got a pretty safe run.
Not under any immediate threat, because this is the battle behind him. It's an all-Honda battle between Moreira and Marini for 10th place. So Fabio Quartararo, unless he has a serious drop-off in performance in the final 3rd of this sprint, is going to hold on to that final World Championship point.
Pre-weekend, Agura said he'd be happy with a pair of top 6 finishes. He's well on track to achieve half of that particular job. We're on a lonely 4th place at the moment. As further down the field we go, there is Jack Miller. He started this sprint in 11th place. He slipped back a couple of places to 13th. Gap between Mark and Alex is sort of holding station in between 4 tenths and half a second. It looks like with 5 to go that Mark looking pretty comfortable at the front.
excellent ride this, has to be said, by Alex Marquez, very much keeping his brother in view. Hasn't ultimately been able to make a pass or come close to making a pass and a dart at his older brother, but he's very much keeping in range, and it's clear, and you can see from the overhead shot, the helicopter shot, top left onto your screens, where Mark is stronger and where Alex is stronger, and of course with more lefts than rights around this circuit, that very much plays into the hands of the 93.
It's all getting strung out a little bit. 4 tenths is the gap at the start of this lap between Mark and Alex. 8 tenths back to Didier, a further 7 tenths then back between Didier and Nagura, and then a big gap of almost 1.5 seconds between the two Trackhouse teammates. So it looks like if anybody is to deny Mark a record 19 sprint victory, it is going to come from the same household. It looks like it's only going to be Alex that can deny him. Gian Antonio just has not got the pace at this late stage. 4 laps and a little bit more remaining. Through the final corner we go. The short climb up the hill to the finish line. What's the gap between Mark and Alex? Of course, well, it's come down a little bit. Fair play to Alex and fair play to Gian Antonio as well, because behind Mark, those two have both got themselves back in the 120s. This one maybe still got a little bit of life left in it.
Yep, still 4 more laps to go, and the very least that Alex Marquez can do here is just keep the pressure on Marc Marquez. Of course, someone who's won as often as he has, particularly around the Saxon ring. He's not the kind of rider to buckle under pressure, but you never know. Just force him to take a little bit more risk than he'd ordinarily want to. Because Marc Marquez, you can understand with his physical situation that he might not want to necessarily push at an absolute 100% unless he absolutely needs to. Alex Marquez is trying to ensure that he does need to.
Well, he's no front-running sprint novice, is he, Alex Marquez? He's a 6-time sprint winner himself, most recently on a weekend which ultimately turned out to be a rather painful exercise for Alex at the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya. He was superb in the Saturday sprint before all of his well-documented Sunday problems. He's doing a fantastic job here of at least keeping Mark honest, keeping Mark right on his toes as they dance down through turn 11. Turn 12 coming up then, this third gear left-hander. Just cannot, can he, get close enough just to even threaten to nudge it on the inside of Mark.
Yeah, Gian Antonio at the moment is still hovering around that sort of 0.8 of a second gap back from Alex. Of course, can't see Didier, he's behind us on the racetrack as they come across the line. They exchange 21-1s. Gian Antonio was the fastest of the leading 3 on that time around, down to his final sector, but he is still just over that tantalising 1 second behind the race leader.
Yeah, you fear that Didier has just let 93 and 73 get away from him a little bit too much. Who knows, never say never in MotoGP. There's your live championship. So Jorge Martin is going to potentially, as it stands right now, take 4 points out of his beleaguered teammate Marco Bezzecchi. Unfortunately, he's watching this sprint sidelined with a mangled left collarbone after his heavy crash right here. And Q2 this morning, it is still Mark that looks in complete control of the sprint so far. He has made a mistake. We haven't seen it on camera.
Yeah, he's so good in this sort of position. You don't win as many World Championships and Grand Prix and sprints and all the rest of it as Marc Marquez has, unless you're a very comfortable front runner. Gian Antonio looks like he's making the late move here, but as you mentioned, he might well have just left it a little too late. Once again, after we've seen in so many sprints this season, it's Didier finishing quickly.
Yeah, it does look like Nagura has decided to think big picture here. No sense in throwing some important championship points down the road into the kitty. Do you feel?
Yeah. He's the only rider now in the 120s. He did a 20.9 on the last lap. The battle's developing elsewhere, and look how close he's getting now from the overhead shot. Fernandez looks like he's just about got Martin covered. There's about 6 tenths between them for 5th and 6th. Bagnaia is comfortably clear of Acosta, who in turn has a 2.5 on Fabio Quartararo. The big battle is the one you're watching, and it's for 2nd place.
You just wonder here whether Alex Marquez, who is still nowhere near full fitness, just might be tiring, just might be an element of fatigue here that's a factor at play. Let's not beat around the bush. This is not Alex Marquez in perfect full fitness trim after that bruising crash he had in Barcelona, the big high side he had recently, of course, in Assen, where somehow in the Sunday Grand Prix still wrestled that Gradini Ducati to a sensational 5th place. He's got it all on here though to hang on to the silver medal position. 1 lap and now one corner remaining here in this Sachsenring sprint. Is Marc Marquez on course for a record 19 sprint victory? He tackles the final corner, 3.671 kilometres, then standing between Marc and a moment of history.
I think Gian Antonio's going to have to attack here into turn one if he can get anywhere there close enough, because Alex Marquez so good through the right hand of the Ralph Walden curve of turn 11, which pretty much thwarts any attempt that Gian Antonio can have of making a move into those final two left-handers.
Can Martin get Fernandez late on here for fifth? He was only 3/10 a little bit more behind Fernandez as they started the last lap. 3/10 quicker on the previous lap was Martin, so that could come down to a real juicy last sector battle between the two Aprilias.
Yeah, so where can Fabio Gian Antonio plot a move here on Alex Marquez, knowing that the corner he needs to be strong at to get a run on Alex Marquez is probably Alex's strongest corner on the circuit. We're now through this never-ending sequence.
Two corners then of this Saxon ring sprint remaining, and it has been a start to finish cruise, not a cruise, but Marc Marquez has led it from the very first corner. One corner remaining then for the reigning world champion, who is well on course for yet another Saxon ring treble. Pole position to the sprint win in 2025. He's backed it up here in 2026. Marc Marquez is now the all-time winning rider in sprints. This is 19th success. Brilliant performance by the reigning world champion, the factory Ducati. He converts pole position number 77 into sprint win number 19, takes the checker flag by just over 3.5 tenths of a second. Alex Marquez does indeed hold on to the silver medal spot. He fends off the late fast-charging Fabio Gian Antonio. Another sprint medal and, more important, world championship points for Digia. Ayagura is fourth. Ralph Fernandez does hold off Jorge Martin for fifth place. Martin increases world champions lead to 11 points with a half-fought 6. Points for Bagnaia, Acosta and Quartararo. That's points in all 11 sprints and now so far this season for Pecco Bagnaia. Well, from that pole position, which he secured in record-breaking fashion this morning with the all-time lap record, was a record sprint victory in any serious doubt? Was there in any serious jeopardy? Alex Marquez tried to put the pressure on throughout that sprint, but once again in the Saxon ring, Marc Marquez just head and shoulders above anybody else on track.
All felt very 2025, that, didn't it, for Marc Marquez? The Marquez brother 1-2. First time we've been able to say that this season. Alex with a tremendous second place, given what he's been through over the last month or so. And Fabio Gian Antonio, well, whether he would have been able to do anything about the Marquez brothers anyway without being embroiled in the Trackhouse Aprilias on that other lap, we will never know. But in the end, he just could not find a way past Alex and has to settle for a bronze, which does still enhance his title prospects. Gian Antonio now just 13 points off the lead.
Despite his absence in that sprint, Marco Bezzecchi does still just about cling on to second place in the standings, a second place which he's more than likely to surrender at the end of tomorrow's 30-lap Grand Prix. He's only 2 points clear now of Fabio Gian Antonio. Could Fabio Gian Antonio head into the summer break as the world championship leader? I don't think too many people would have been saying that at the start of the campaign. But he's not just been super fast this season, as he did you. He has been super consistent as well. He keeps racking up the podiums and the top sixes. That sprint podium number 5 for Digia. Of course, he was third in Assen. He's now third here today in the Saxon ring. In fact, his last 4 sprint podiums, he's had to settle for a bronze medal. But he keeps the point scoring, the big point scoring finishes ticking over. But Marc Marquez, his threat in this year's World Championship is starting to build some serious momentum. There's confirmation on your screens that it is now a record 19 sprint wins for Marc Marquez. He's also now the most successful sprint rider in terms of podiums as well, as he moves on to 35 sprint podiums. Not a bad job, that, a good rescue job by Jorge Martin. I'm not too sure pre-sprint he would have been expecting too much better than a 6th place, Lewis.
No, and given that Ducati clearly have an advantage over Aprilia here, with those 3 locking out the podium from the front row, it was always going to be a battle between the Aprilias to the best of the rest. And Martin, in the end, couldn't quite match the Trackhouse duo as he gazes at the front tyre of his factory Aprilia. Yeah, the championship position, he extends his lead to 11 points. That was always going to go one way once Rezeki was ruled out. Now, a weekend which started with 25 points covering the top 4, that is now 23 between Martin, Rezeki, Gian Antonio and Agura.
Another sensational sprint Saturday for the number 93, Marc Marquez. And that's now the 3rd time this season that he has, from pole position, been able to take the spoils in the sprint. So pre-sprint he won from pole in Jerez, he did it as well in Hungary. And that what is, without any question, surely one of, well, if not the favourite track for Marc Marquez. He has done it again. He's going to come and congratulate his brother Alex. I think he's probably saying, come on, I could have done with a little bit of an easier afternoon than that one, Alex. He really did push and test Marc, but so often throughout his Grand Prix career, the 93 seldom buckles under pressure. He seldom cracks. You have to say he never really looked like losing the lead in that sprint. 15 laps, which were nigh on perfection. Once he got the pole position and once he'd seized track position at that first corner, well, that was it. He never really looked like he was going to yield to anybody. Full credit to Alex, who did a sterling job behind him. It's a very important 9 points collected for Alex. He's now 9th in the World Championship.
Well, Marc won the Ducati Cup. Ralph Fernandez won the Aprilia Cup behind them for 4th, 5th, and won the battle of Fernandez and Martin. Of course, Agura just ahead of him in the end after getting the advantage on that opening lap, having qualified behind Ralph Fernandez. Bit of a lonely ride in the end, wasn't it, for Raul? He was basically riding against his pit board. It looked going on to the final lap as if Jorge Martin was closing in. Fernandez, to his credit, responded on that final lap by pulling out a further 4/10 over Jorge Martin to take a very comfortable 5th place.
He said pre-weekend here, coming into the Sachsenring, I'm in the game. I am in the hunt to mount a successful defence of the World Championship to try and be crowned MotoGP World Champion for an 8th time. And it has been a brilliant weekend so far for the World Champion. Didn't get off to the best of starts with an early crash in FP1 yesterday at turn 3. From that point onwards, though, he has been once again the cream of a very talented crop. He takes the checker flag just in the 4/10 of a second clear of brother Alex. Davide Tardozzi, they know. This is why they were so keen to get Marc signed up on a new 2-year contract. He did say that there was some brief talks about maybe what would have been a fairy tale return to Honda, but having been on a Ducati, having won a World Championship with Ducati, hard to imagine Marc moving anywhere else for 2027 and beyond.
The only person who loves winning more than Marc Marquez is Davide Tardozzi. You can see he's absolutely buzzing with that. The sprint podium, which is held down into the distance from where we're sat over at turn 1. As he congratulates Alex Marquez and perhaps asking what we asked in the Godrej box. Couldn't you have made it a bit easier for us?
That's an absolutely top job by Alex. That is a real top job. This is a real busy, tight, compact, quirky Sachsenring layout. Your body gets no rest whatsoever. The start-finish straight here measures only 700 metres, very, very short. You're carrying full lean angle for so much of the lap here in the Sachsenring, particularly on the left-hand side. It is a real tough challenge. One that Fabio Di Gianantonio was up for, one that he relished. It's another sprint podium for Digia from the front row. He's the Jack.
Fabio, another brilliant ride, another very important sprint podium. You made that vital move on I in the opening laps, and it felt at the end with maybe just a couple more laps. It would have been very interesting, but I'm sure you'll be very pleased with that result. More vital points for the championship.
Yeah, for sure. Today the goal was to achieve the podium, and then for sure taking as much points as possible. You know, every point counts. So I had to do the move on I at the beginning because I knew that I had a little more pace, and maybe at the end I was a little faster than Alex, but here in Saxony it's super difficult then to find clean air and then overtake. So it was too much risk on the last 2 laps. So 3rd is more than perfect. I'm happy.
Great job today.
Thank you. Ciao.
Yeah, another great job as Fabio Di Gianantonio then takes his sprint podium count to 11. And it's pretty much a full year. The last time Ducati locked out a sprint podium in the dry was all the way back at Balaton Park in Hungary. in 2025. So many of the headlines so far this year have gone the way of Aprilia. But Marc Marquez will feel that some form of normal service has been resumed here at the Sachsenring. He was pushed all the way there, wasn't he, for the win in that 15-lap sprint. Doing the pushing was his brother Alex, who gets the congratulations from Digi. Let's get Alex's thoughts on that hard-fought second place for Jack.
Alex, what a brilliant ride. It's been such a complicated 6 weeks since Barcelona, but you are truly back to your best this weekend, and you made Marc push every single lap there. How much does this second place mean?
Yeah. I tried my best every lap, every corner. I was trying just to survive because I was quite slippery from rear. But anyway, you know, I did my best race that was possible today. Still, I can't make for physical condition all the race pushing 100%. I need still to be there in a safety mode a little bit, and I ride not in a proper way because I'm a little bit more too stiff. But for the race, you know, it was a really good race. A second behind Marc, really close, and last lap I was coming a little bit. So yeah, so happy, and it's a result that I needed after the crash in Montmeló.
Brilliant ride today.
Thank you so much.
A result he needed, a result he richly deserved. Brilliant job that by Alex. It's actually his first podium since he was victorious in that Catalan Grand Prix sprint. But once again, we saw it so frequently, didn't we, in 2025. Alex was strong, Alex was fast, but his pesky older brother was always just that little bit faster, wasn't he? More very important championship points collected then for Ayagura. He sits just 23 back now of series leader Jorge Martin, so a couple of points gained on the championship lead for Agura. But he's done it again from pole position. It's back-to-back poles and now back-to-back sprint wins here at the Sachsenring for the king, Marc Marquez with Jack.
Marc, it's yet another victory here at the Sachsenring, but one where you were pushed every single lap by Alex. Great to see him back to your best, but I'm sure you feel this is a hugely important win in the championship picture.
Yeah, of course, Alex was pushing quite hard. I saw that always was very close, even the last laps. And yeah, just tried to keep a constant pace, but even like this, he was able to even catch me in the last lap. So let's see for tomorrow with the medium tire we can manage in a better way, but with the same result.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That was sprint 27 in the factory Ducati red for Marc Marquez. It was his 18th victory, and it wasn't easy, but he made it look easy. Let's be perfectly frank. It looked like Marc maybe had another gear. We'll find out tomorrow over the full 30 laps in the Grand Prix of Germany. But if he does leave the Sachsenring with the maximum 37-point haul for the second year in a row, with Aprilia under-strengthened and depleted, with no Marco Bezzecchi sidelined through injury, when we return from our hard-earned 3-week summer break at the British Grand Prix at Silverstone in about a month's time, what a second half of the season lies in store.
Yeah, there's a genuine scenario tomorrow which could see Marc Marquez leave the Sachsenring second in the World Championship if results go his way tomorrow, and he does his part of the bargain. He's 21 points behind Marco Bezzecchi, who we know won't score anything tomorrow. The reigning champion is looming in the background. In fact, he's not even in the background now. He is right in the middle of this superb championship battle. Fabio Di Giannantonio, he's firmly in it too, and could yet lead the World Championship out of Germany if he can score enough points to overhaul Jorge Martin tomorrow. He's already 2 behind Marco Bezzecchi, who we know won't start. 4 riders covered by 23 points. Top 5 covered by 32. Still 8 riders covered by 64 points. Back to Pecco Bagnaia, who finished 7th today. The bronze medal is handed over and put around the neck of Fabio Di Giannantonio, who has been dealing in quite a few bronzes as of late. That is his 4th consecutive sprint podium that has been the colour bronze. Second place for Alex Marquez, the 2nd sprint podium of the season. The other, of course, being a gold at home in Barcelona. Pointing to the Messini, one of the many parts of Alex Marquez's body that he's had to recuperate recently. But the winner today The winner almost always at the Sachsenring is Marc Marquez. He goes for a 10th MotoGP Grand Prix success at the Sachsenring tomorrow, but he takes back-to-back sprint wins at the Sachsenring. After gold in 2025, it's gold in 2026 as his title defense gathers momentum.